There's an acceleration of connection and trust building and information sharing that happens in person. Having a voice that is solution oriented, naming the problem, identifying ways that we can solve it, and being willing to sort of roll up sleeves and experiment, I think just goes so far. We don't have desk heavy presence and meeting room heavy presence on one half. The people function can play a tremendous role in driving growth.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Heroes of Hybrid Work. On today's pod, I'm very excited to welcome Sarah Barillaro, current Chief People Officer at 3Play Media, a Boston-based company that combines machine learning, AI, and automatic speech recognition to provide premium closed captioning and transcription, localization, and more. Previously, Sarah was the SVP of People at Brightcove and U.S. Learning Partner for HR at John Hancock. Sarah says building something that attracts the right people for the right reasons and empowers them to learn, grow, and thrive is what gets her up in the morning, and why Sarah's joining us as a hero of hybrid work today. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on the Heroes of Hybrid Work.
Thanks, Jenny. It's so great to be here.
Awesome. So let's get started. So could you share a little bit of your story with us and your background? What was your journey to becoming a Chief People Officer?
Yeah, I sometimes say it's a bit non-traditional in the sense that I feel very passionate about the people function. I definitely did not think I was going to end up in the people function. I actually started my career in retail, and at the age of 25, which was a long time ago, I was managing a team of about 60 people, running a P&L, dealing with all sorts of management issues that I sort of had no experience, or whoever took a chance on me was feeling bullish. And I sort of fell in love with management. I felt like it was the hardest thing to do, and definitely the most challenging thing to do. And I ended up getting my MBA at Simmons here in Boston. And I remember talking to a career coach, and she said, you really like thinking about how organizations tick and what makes people sort of work well together in teams. She said, you can do that for a job. And I had never really thought about that. So I sort of brushed up on what that might look like and fell into learning and development on the business side, and have really sort of gone back and forth between the business. I did a stint in sales and sales enablement, and then have been largely in the people function for the last several years.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like, so at John Hancock, you were at learning and development, and then you moved over back to people at Brightcove, and then you stayed in people here at 3Play Media, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So what are some of your beliefs you hold when it comes to leading the people function that you feel so passionate about, and how it impacts the business?
I feel like there are a lot of different ways you can impact the business. I worked closely with actuaries for a while when I was at John Hancock, which is a skill set and a career I would fail at so horribly. And I remember partnering with some of the actuaries when I was actually in HR and thinking, what an interesting way to make an impact on the business. For an insurance company, it's a really critical role. And I think that the best way that I can make an impact on the business is through people. I really sort of get a lot of energy out of helping people think through thorny employee issues, becoming stronger leaders, sort of like no topics off the table. I really enjoy and love tackling those issues. And I really feel like from a business perspective, the people function can play a tremendous role in driving growth. And I've seen a lot of evolution in the HR space over the last 10, 15 years in terms of how people are regarding the people function. And I think that's largely due to a lot of people who see that it can really be a very powerful driver.
I'm a big believer in that as well. I used to work at the Predictive Index. I was their head of marketing. And I could see the impact that HR had on engagement, retention, on, real business metrics that matter. I'm a big supporter there. So can you think of any examples that you think might be interesting to our listeners from that perspective?
I think that the last few years have been really challenging for businesses and for HR leaders. There's no shortage of content out there, and on LinkedIn, with people posting who are in this function about just how exhausting it can be, and not just because the role is, demanding and the function has a lot, but I think employees have a very high expectation of what they need in a workplace in order to do their best work. And I think we have an obligation as people leaders, frankly, to truly listen to them. And that doesn't always mean that we make decisions that make the business really happy. In fact, sometimes we make decisions that it's hard to make everybody happy. But I think, I think since we've been going through this remote work, COVID, I don't know what the right way is to characterize the sort of stage we're in right now. I'm sure somebody will come up with something catchy soon, but I think it's challenging, and I think it's a really hard road for people to navigate.
Yeah. So speaking of which, so you were at Bright Cove when the pandemic hit, and then when we came back, and then when we went back home, and then maybe when we came back again. So, did you lead that charge in developing a hybrid work policy? Take me through that a little bit.
Yeah, I had a really interesting onboarding experience at Bright Cove. I followed a former chief people officer who had been my CPO at my prior company. I followed her over to Bright Cove, and she was my one familiar face for a while, because I started in September of 2020. I think the playgrounds in my neighborhood were still taped up, and my kids couldn't play in the playground. So it was a really sort of lockdown environment. At that time, we weren't even talking about hybrid work. We were talking about what's the best way that we can sort of maximize work in general, and keep our people from being burnt out, making sure that we support them to go through the vaccination struggles, and sort of like everybody had different opinions about it. And just it became a very personal conversation. One of the things I observed with people who I worked with, and also really tested myself, is you had to be sort of comfortable with the uncomfortable during that time, and really comfortable with just a complete lack of clarity around what was the right thing to do, because it was so unprecedented. And my CPO at the time, I think, did a really remarkable job of listening. We also operated out of so many countries that it was really important that we adhere to sort of the guidelines country by country. And our leaders, we had a call every week, and we really talked about sort of what was going on and what was needed with our various employees. So I don't know, it's hard. I don't think or talk about that time very often, but because it's kind of a blur, but it was pretty intense. Meeting everybody in tiny little boxes for 6 months.
It's so true. People ask me about that time all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I remember homeschooling my kindergartner and my second grader, and that's it. So I don't know what I did at work. I don't remember.
Yeah, totally.
So how did you make the decisions? Like, what were the decisions that were made at Bright Cove, and how did you make them?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest decisions I alluded to before that we had to really navigate was around whether or not to mandate vaccinations for people coming back into the office when things were lifting. And, I like to think that there are very few things, even though a lot is unprecedented, there are very few things that, especially in the people space, that I feel like others haven't gone through, right, or haven't navigated. And one of the things that my CPO at the time did, which gave us a really good set of information, was she was really connected to other leaders, not only in the Boston area, and I reached into my own network as well, and just talked to people. What are you doing? What are some of your employees saying? Oh, I didn't know you had an operation in that country. We do too. How are you handling this? What are some of the things that you're trying to get ahead of? How are you seeing around the corners? All that sort of stuff. I still really think to this day, I think that the network is not to be underestimated. I learn and grow from people I've managed, from mentors of mine, former bosses, you name it. And I think, especially in times like that, especially in the people function, For me, that was invaluable, was to be able to get some information, get some data, bring it back to the team, talk it through with our leaders, and then obviously sort of right size and apply it to what was happening at Brightcove.
Yeah, that seems to be the most common thing is listen to your people, right? And if you're not asking your people, listening to your people, and if you're not asking the rest of the world what they're doing, then you're not having that conversation and you're missing out, right, on how to do it right. So something that really kind of stood out to me was this human in the loop. And I kind of want to steal it for how do you keep humans in the loop when it comes to hybrid work? And I mean, you can have it too.
Yes, I'm going to.
But so in your experience at 3Play, how are you keeping the humans in the loop? What is your hybrid work policy at 3Play, and how is it different or the same, really?
Yeah, it's I think any of us in the leadership team would tell you it's something that we both talk about very frequently and frankly have struggled with in terms of what the right solution is, and sort of getting back to that notion of you can't sort of please everyone. It's hard. Right now, we've been doing this for a while now. We come in the Boston office. We all try to come in on Wednesdays.
Okay.
So we have one day where we're all there. We try to have intentional work. My team is actually not based out of Boston. So when I am in Boston on the office on Wednesdays, I try to not have team meetings then. To really make sure that I can have as many face-to-face meetings with our employees who are there as well. And others do that too. So Wednesdays are sort of our anchor day. That's the day that we try to come in and do sort of intentional work together. So we might do a 2-hour workshop on a problem we're trying to solve, that sort of thing. We also have other days, and we encourage people to come into the office to do just that any other days of the week. So Tuesdays and Thursdays tend to be the days where other people in the office will also come in. And it works. It works. Is it perfect? No. And I think one of the things that we have really struggled with is a lot of people are used to and want to work and have the flexibility to sort of come and go as they feel that they need to. I mean, I have 2 kids who are 8 and 10, and I take them to school every day. Like, for me, that's a non-negotiable to sort of be able to not have that. And so I think we've all gotten used to that, and that's a good thing.
That is really interesting. So, we always talk about, remote work is great for knowledge workers, but if lots of workers need to come in still. So, how do we find balance for those workers and make the experience equitable? Are there things that you do to ensure that they're feeling work-life balance, even though their job requires them to go in?
We do try. This is a really small thing, but one of the things that we've been doing is we provide lunch for people in the office. And we have 2 different shifts of people who are coming in, depending on what type of work they're doing. And so we've really tried to make sure that we provide as much schedule flexibility when it comes to ordering meals for them on that day. And that's, it's a small thing, but I tell you the number of people who said, we just love when we get lunch. Like, it means something. So
it totally does. We just launched a program as well globally where we send a gift card and you can get lunch, and people post their food that they bought like all over the world. And it not only makes people happy and feel appreciated, but it also creates this culture of connectivity when we're sharing and inclusivity. Don't underestimate lunch, people.
Don't underestimate. That's the takeaway. Yeah, coffee and lunch are like the 2 things that unite people. So
that's awesome. I saw that you opened a beautiful office space in the North End in Boston. How do you think the office space and the layout contributes to people wanting to come into the office?
Oh, it's a great question. This is another one where I would say we're experimenting. So we have historically had sort of 2 sides to our office. You sort of walk up in the middle and there's 2 separate areas where you can work, all open. One of those sides has a kitchen, and about maybe 4 months ago, we decided to try to experiment with collaboration so that we have people really centered in one area. So we no longer really, well, we use it for some things, but we're not, we don't have desk heavy presence and meeting room heavy presence on one half. And we're really trying to sort of see and explore, what does it mean for people to sit closer together? And what sorts of conversations are people overhearing? So, I'll give you the example of, we have our BDR team come in, and I will sit near that team and I will hear the BDRs talk to one another and collaborate and hear other things from the account executives who they might not otherwise hear. And it's really just because that proximity is there and people are closer. So again, it's an experiment, but we're liking it.
I agree with that. I think there are certain roles that really benefit, especially junior roles that really benefit from hearing more senior folks on the phones. BDR, definitely one of them. That just, we used to have these energetic sales floors, right? And then it all disappeared. And then all of a sudden these junior folks are home alone trying to figure out how to do this. I totally agree with that. We're experimenting with the same thing. I don't think anyone has the answer, which is why we're here. But that's definitely one of the roles that comes to mind. So for the other half, are you allowing people to book desks or meeting rooms and more traditional layout?
Yeah, we don't have, we sort of tinkered with whether or not to do a desk booking system. And it's actually been an interesting anthropological study to watch where people sit.
Yeah.
There are some people who come in and sit in a different spot every day. There are some people who gravitate towards a very similar either section or desk.
Yep.
I don't know that they know that I'm watching them, but I'm observing where they're going. And then we haven't had to. We do book rooms. I think that's one of the things that we're really trying to figure out is sort of how much collaborative space is needed behind closed walls versus open. But yeah, people can use the spaces they need to without a lot of formal booking.
Awesome. And because it's one day a week, I understand that need to have that collaborative space, because that's why people come into the office. It's to see their friends, it's to talk, and it's to brainstorm and collaborate in person. And, I find, who was I talking to? Christina Luconi, the Chief People Officer at Rapid7. She was talking about how, we could get a lot of work done at home, but is it the most impactful work? And when, does that also happen when we come together and then go back home, right? After we've had that time together.
Yeah, and I think, Jenny, to that point, I think that's an important component of it, because I think it's also pushing us, as people leaders and just really as employees, to think about types of work, focus work versus collaborative work, and where do you get the most energy out of it. One of the things I've noticed too with respect to onboarding, I've now onboarded quote unquote remotely, you could say, at 2 companies over the last few years, and have onboarded a lot of people myself. And there's an acceleration of connection and trust building and information sharing that happens in person. And that's not to say we need to necessarily do more or less of it. But I do think that there's a component of that can't be underestimated. And I've seen a couple of our new hires at 3Play come in, and when they come in on Wednesdays, it's like you almost see that they leave that Wednesday more connected, more engaged, have more information.
Sure.
So it's a hard balance, but I believe strongly that there's so much value that gets out of it if you think about the work in terms of different
100%,
types.
100%. So we are coming up on time, but that was fast. So, I like to ask people, you came to this podcast maybe wanting to say something and I didn't ask the right question. What do you want to leave our listeners with today, from what you've learned about hybrid work?
Specifically with respect to hybrid work?
Yeah.
I think that having a voice, be it, whatever role you are, employee, a leader who has to make a decision around how hybrid work should be structured, having a voice that is solution oriented, naming the problem, identifying ways that we can solve it, and being willing to sort of roll up sleeves and experiment, I think just goes so far. And I've said to, a number of employees who've come to me and sort of said, I'm okay with this decision, or I'm not okay with this decision, or why are we doing this? the ones who are, and largely this has been my experience at 3Play, who are just there to say, let's figure this out together. That energy goes so far. And I think, everybody's got good intentions, but I think the more times than not that we can come to the table with, there's a real issue with how we're doing our work. And I'm committed to sort of helping us get there to the solution. I think it just goes so far.
Awesome. So everyone out there, share your voice, let people know. Your chief people officers want to know. They just want to make sure that you're getting your best work done and that you have what you need. Awesome. So how can people find you, Sarah?
Oh, buy me coffee. I do like coffee, and I will meet somebody in a coffee shop anytime. LinkedIn is a great place, a great place to find me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really a pleasure meeting you, and I think people will get a lot out of this. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks for having me.